The mechanism of speech and speech centers. There are two major types of speech. They are called as spoken speech and written speech. Spoken speech, this means understanding the spoken words and expressing the ideas in speech. Whereas written speech means understanding the written words and expressing the ideas in writing. Understanding of the speech, that is the sensory aspects of communication. Understanding of spoken speech occurs in hearing the spoken words. To hear a sound, we require an intact auditory pathway from the ears to the primary auditory cortex, that is area 41. Then you have to understand the spoken words. For understanding of sound, there must be an activity of the adjacent audio psychic area, that is area number 2021. Then there has to be interpretation and comprehension of speech ideas. In order to express the idea in speech, the activity of sensory speech center, which is called as Wernicke's area, area number 22, is very essential. Wernicke's area is located in the region at the posterior end of the superior temporal gyrus in the dominant hemisphere, that is in categorical hemisphere. It is concerned with the comprehension, that is the interpretation and understanding of auditory and visual information. Understanding written speech, the perception of the first there has to be perception of the written words. In order to see the words, it requires an intact visual pathway from the eyes to the primary visual cortex area, that is area number 17. Then there has to be interpretation of the written speech. In order to interpret the written symbols of the past experience, it requires the activity in the visual psychic areas, that is area 18 and 19. Then there has to be generation of ideas in response to written speech. To express the idea in writing, it involves the activity of visual speech center called as Dejerine area, that is area number 39. Dejerine area is located in the angular gyrus behind the Wernicke's area in the dominant hemisphere. It processes the information from printed words in such a way that they can be converted into auditory forms of the words in Wernicke's area. That is called as internal speech. The sensory speech center includes Wernicke's and Dejerine areas. Then expression of speech, that is the motor aspect of the speech. Expression of speech requires skilled use of many muscles such as muscles of lip, tongue, larynx, hand, and fingers. There is a motor speech center for both spoken and written speech in the prefrontal lobe in the dominant hemisphere. The motor speech centers include Broca's and Exner's areas. Expression in the form of spoken speech. Expression in the form of spoken speech involves the activity of the motor speech area, that is Broca's area. Broca's area, it is located in the inferior frontal gyrus in the region of anterior and ascending rami of lateral sulcus in the dominant hemisphere. It processes the information received from sensory speech centers into detailed and coordinated pattern of vocalization. Wernicke's area projects via arcade fasciculus to Broca's areas. This pattern is then projected to the motor cortex, which initiates the appropriate movements of the lips, tongue, and larynx to produce speech. So then expression in the form of written speech. Expression in the form of written speech is the function of Exner's area. Exner's area, that is motor writing area, is located in the middle frontal gyrus in the dominant hemisphere anterior to the motor cortex. That is it is situated in the premotor cortex. It processes the information from Broca's area into detailed and coordinated pattern, which then along with the motor cortex initiates appropriate movements of hands and fingers to produce written speech. Then expression of both spoken and written speech. Suppose somebody is reading book aloud and then wishes to write that he has read, the sequence will be as follows. The printed words will be seen first by the primary visual cortex, the highest area of perception of visual sense. Then the printed words seen are properly interpreted and understood by the visual association area, that is area number 18. Then the printed words which are understood are converted into internal speech by the Dejerine area, that is the angular gyrus. Then Wernicke's area, that is area 22, it interprets and understands the internal speech. Then in turn it sends information to the Broca's area for pattern coordination. The Broca's area, that is area 44, sends detailed pattern uh, coordination information to the motor areas 4 for the spoken speech and Exner's area for the written speech, that is the motor writing center. The Exner's area along with motor area 4 initiates appropriate muscle movements of hand and fingers to produce written speech. So this is the path taken by the impulses when subject names a visual object. It will be visualized in the primary visual cortex. Then it goes to the higher order visual cortical areas for the procession. Then it goes to the angular gyrus, which is called as uh, the area of interpretation. Then it goes to the Wernicke's area. From Wernicke's area through the arcuate fasciculus, it reaches the Broca's area to produce the motor speech to the facial area of the motor cortex, that is 4.